People do it sometimes with personalizing a desktop. Or a lot of, this is very much so in Asian countries, but even here, personalizing your smartphone with messages, colorful things. It's making it part of your world that you live in. Even something like this. People have very positive attitudes about Google. And you think about Google, I mean, they're the epitome of IT, high tech, but they are a very playful company on special occasions, holidays and whatnot. They change their user interface, and people love that because it's part of their social world now. All right, a couple of things to say about content. And I know there's a content panel coming, but I want to come at it from my work with consumers. The three S's. What's going to be the future for cloud content? SMUT, sports, and social media videos. SMUT. I'm actually doing some research on this. You can go back to ancient Greece. The first billboard, 800 BC in Ephesus, it was a billboard for a brothel. And if you look at the phonograph, you look at the VCR, 70% of VCRs, video cassettes in the early days, were pornography. And this is a Minitel, many of you older folks will know. What drove Minitel? It was these kind of sleazy chat rooms. This was late 90s. I found this outside of Philadelphia, a big sign. So SMUT has always been there, and it's going to be with us in the cloud. Second thing, sports. Sports drove black and white TV. It drove color television. It drove HD TV. Sports is another really, really important content area. All right, now YouTube, used to be, as Ellie was saying, stupid animals doing stupid things. But these videos that are being generated, user-generated videos, they're much better, and they're getting huge audiences. This was from the London Olympics, and a cartoon about it. Let's make a low-budget movie till help arrives. Everybody thinks they're a filmmaker nowadays. This sort of puts it together. This was in the Times last week. Take user-generated content, put it into a social media form, and you get Miss Lollipop. And once again, huge popularity. Okay, I want to move quickly. Second, third, we talk about second screens or third screens. Well, let me tell you, you wouldn't believe if you go into the average home what's going on. This we kind of expect. A laptop, and you're doing something. Sometimes it's video, sometimes it's not while you're watching television. Here you see a laptop and an iPod. Another very common thing. Okay, let's count them. Television, 1, 2, 3 laptops. This is an off-campus apartment up in Boston. What about here? This is television, 1, 2, 3, 4 laptops. 5 screens in one room. And often what you'll see is 3 or 4 people in a living room, all with their own device, all watching different things. And in the past, what would happen is those people would migrate to other rooms. So you don't like what's on the main TV, I go to the bedroom and I watch what I want. More often than not, they're staying in the same room. All kinds of implications. New forms of group viewing. We think of the smartphone, the tablet as a personal device, and the image of TV in the old days was a group watching TV. It's still the case these are personal devices, but you're starting to see group viewing with these smartphones, with tablets. You split the earbuds. You're just sitting on a couch with other people. Kids do this all the time. Be 2 or 3 kids watching video on a computer. Or this couple who I interviewed, every evening they lie down together and they watch a movie together on their laptop. Challenges and opportunities. It's not all golden. There's lots of things that are both a challenge and an opportunity. One is public locations. Now, we've always had television in public locations, but it was small-scale stuff. Some people who had a portable TV. For decades, we've had at airports, CNN or something like that. But it has just grown enormously. All right, you see it at sports stadiums. The sports bar. This one had 28 TVs. The iPod at a mall. In offices, this was a garage where people were waiting and they had television for them. This is Bryant Park. You'll see, smartphones, laptops, and I'm not going to give it a number. You don't do that when you do this kind of research, but a lot of people are watching video. You see it on airplanes, on trains. This is in Atlanta. It's also international. This was in China, a stall where they were just watching TV in between, a restaurant in Buenos Aires, an airport lounge in Istanbul. Video is everywhere. So we have to think about that in terms of the services. How are we going to get them to public locations? Another problem, finding content. As much as, some of us may be nostalgic for the old days of TV Guide, TV Guide in its day did a good job, but TV Guide couldn't work with 700 channels. And we really haven't solved that. When you talk to people about electronic program guides, they say it's still 700 channels, I can't find the content. Part of it is design, and part of it is the sheer problem of designing it. People talk about they have Netflix, and they know there's 17,000 videos and movies, and they can't find what they want. That's a major, major challenge. Okay, untapped audiences. The elderly. No one talks about the elderly. Everyone just sort of writes them off. There's a huge change in the elderly these days. When people, 20 years ago, people who didn't have experience with a computer at the work and then they retired, they really didn't know technology. Nowadays, the people who are retired have had experience with the computer. My wife is in an exercise class, and there are like a dozen women who are in their 70s. Every one of them has a computer. Every one of them has a smartphone. 2/3 of them have tablets. It's a different world, but they have problems with the design. There are two big issues. One, really bad user interface design, and the second is lousy customer support. When they call up, they're treated like children. Okay, serendipity, my last point. Whenever you have new services, new technologies, unplanned things happen. Like in the early days of the VCR, the mom and the pop video cassette rental shop, it just emerged. Unfortunately, a lot of companies, when they see this, they are afraid of it. The movie industry tried to destroy the mom and the pop shops, and they made billions of dollars because they lost this significant case. What's the serendipity now? People who find ways to hold their smartphone. This guy showed me how he could take a business card and make a stand for his phone so he could watch it at length. There are people who are dedicated to getting Wi-Fi out there, and they're doing it for free. They're doing it because they have almost a religious fervor about it. And you have to let the flowers bloom. Let serendipity happen and take advantage of it. Okay, that's it.
Thanks very much, John. Our next speaker is Tuna Hamogi, who is the director of S&P Capital IQ.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh.
And then the arrow right, and then this green button is later if you need it. Okay. And just please speak something in the microphone so I can pick you up.
Sure. Good morning, all, and thank you very much for being here. Thanks a lot, Professor Noam, for inviting me to the conference. I'm very pleased to share with you some perspectives of my work as an analyst that covers media and entertainment for S&P Capital IQ. I have been a Wall Street analyst covering the technology, media, and telecom space for about 17 years now. And I can truly say about cloud video that I think the best way to sum what we're actually seeing now and the transformation in video consumption is that we are in a golden age of video consumption. And it used to be that I went to this telecom conference about 10 years ago, and then you'll hear people debating about whether the television or the PC would be the center of the consumer experience. But if you fast forward to today, I think there's been a dramatic shift in terms of how mobility is really affecting and driving a lot of the changes that we're seeing today in terms of video consumption. And I can truly say that in all of my years of covering the media space, that the growth of smartphones and tablets has actually been the most transformational catalyst that we've witnessed in terms of how video is consumed. So no longer do you see the debate TV versus PC. Now it's mobile. It's all about mobility and the transformation that we're seeing from tablets, smartphones, etc. And if you look at the third bullet point there, I talk about ubiquitous internet connectivity. And that is, we're seeing that not just in the US, but also around the world. Personalization of content consumption is also a major catalyst. And by that I mean the idea of getting content on any content, on any device, anywhere and anytime. So some pundits have couched that in terms of 4 A's. Any content, any device, anywhere and anytime. Whether it's in a VOD, DVR, etc. And then the proliferation of content choices and outlets has been a major catalyst. I'm sure this is a theme that you'll hear a lot today. So we're moving away from the 500 channel television universe to a world that now offers you an explosion of content, whether it's over the top content from Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, or even the so-called TV everywhere services from a lot of the paid TV operators, HBO, Showtime, etc. And this is happening around the world, especially in the developed world. And then you also have the penetration of new devices that stream video across all these platforms as a major catalyst. So every year I go to CES, and I don't know, some of you have been there, and it's always overwhelming in terms of the array of gadgets on display and this continued innovation that is really changing the paradigm. So moving along to the next slide, as I said, I covered the content and providers and distributors. This slide shows you what we believe is going to be a potential game changer for the multi-channel video distributors. And that includes the cable provider as well as the telcos, Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, Time Warner Cable, name it. So I think what cloud video allows them to do is to basically enhance the value proposition that they can offer consumers. And one very compelling utility is the idea of out-of-home viewing. And again, that ties back into taking your content anywhere that you want. So we think that's a very, the idea of being able to offer that feature is really translating, the second bullet point talks about improved customer satisfaction as a result. So I think a lot of companies that we follow like to look at metrics like NPV per subscriber, the impact that these new features are adding to the bundle services that they offer, whether it's in terms of reducing video losses, lower churn, or subscriber acquisition cost, higher ARPU. It's very compelling in terms of, if you think about how a lot of these companies are valued by investors on Wall Street per subscriber valuation, whether it's enterprise value per subscriber. So we think that cloud video is going to allow these pay TV guys to improve their product set and improve the economics of their business model. Also, we think that it allows them to defend against competition from over-the-top providers. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about cord cutting or cord shaving or even cord never. So I think the pay TV industry is concerned about this whole idea that the industry is mature. You've got competition from the likes of Netflix. At the same time that the pay TV subscribers is basically declining or at best static. So I think what you see is when Netflix, for example, talks about an addressable market that's about 60 to 90 million subscribers, which is 2 or 3 times the size of HBO. As an analyst, you've got to ask yourself, where's all these subscribers going to come from? Clearly, a lot of them are going to migrate from pay TV platforms. Not all of them, but we think a chunk of them. That's why we think that the cable and telco guys aren't going to sit by and let the OTT guys, basically eat their lunch. So that's why we think cloud video can enable them to, attain some kind of parity. And then what's happening is that we're seeing a lot of incremental high-margin business opportunities from these cloud-enabled initiatives, whether it's home security or targeted addressable advertising, enhanced TV features. Some people talk about start over, follow me, catch up TV, all these features that digital cloud enable the companies to roll out. And then accelerated video innovation, differentiation, and speed to market. That is a major benefit, we think. I think Professor Noam alluded to that differentiation feature. I think what we know, video basically is becoming more commoditized. So I think the providers are basically compelled to continue to innovate and add new features. I think cloud technology enables them to do that. And next to that, improved network management, scalability, and flexibility. These are all very, very compelling benefits, we think, for pay TV providers. And then over the long term, cloud platform has a potential to offer very significant cost savings, whether it's CapEx or operating expenditure. In fact, as we'll see from one of the case studies toward the end of my presentation, that is already being realized by Comcast. I think that the idea of deploying kind of thinner client boxes and integrating them with the traditional consumer premise equipment that cable companies spend billions of dollars on. They're very anxious to be able to monetize, that spending, which, by the way, is actually being, spent on a legacy platform that cannot keep up with the pace of innovation that the consumer use demands. Switching to the next slide from the perspective of content providers. Again, I realize there's a separate track for content and infrastructure providers in this, but I wanted to share a few perspectives of how we view these trends. So I think you've heard that content is king. This is a phrase I'm sure you've heard time and again, and that has never been more so with the development of cloud platforms. Every time we talk to the media executives for the major content companies, you can sense a lot of excitement as to how they view these trends that can transform their business. So it's really providing a boon for branded entertainment content companies that we follow. One way it's doing that is exposing their brands through multiple platforms, providing more consumer touch points to be able to reach consumers, not only that they may not otherwise be able to reach, but those that are already on the existing traditional platforms. Second bullet point, we think the content guys have been very aggressive in monetizing and exploiting their content across all of these secondary screens. And I think what's really interesting is that they're able to leverage this content with minimal incremental costs, and the margins are very high relative to the traditional revenues that they get, and a lot of that revenue is really dropping to the bottom line. So that's really what gets a lot of Wall Street analysts and investors excited as to the potential to be able to leverage these multi-screen dynamics. And then consumer engagement clearly has, based on the some of the early data that we're seeing, is actually orders of magnitude better to be able to access all of this from various platforms. We think that bodes well for the ability of companies to monetize this content. So the more that the user is engaged, the better that the happier they are, and the more that they can spend more time, and the more that the companies can leverage that in additional revenues. And then multi-platform and integrated advertising. We think the ability to pitch to advertisers. If you attend the annual upfront presentations by the networks on Madison Avenue, I think it's kind of evolved from where the pitches several years ago used to be just television only, and now you're seeing integrated pitches that includes not just TV, but all kinds of digital platforms. I think the advertising buyers, they find it a lot more value add to be able to make integrated purchases of advertising and be able to sell that to their advertising agencies, are able to kind of work with their buy-side clients to pull together these kinds of integrated pitches, and we think it's actually helping the networks to get more dollars from the advertising upfront. And then targeted marketing and promotions and improved offerings. I'm getting the flag for 1 minute left. Potential hurdles, I'm going to quickly skim over that because that's been talked about quite a bit by some of the earlier presentations. So you'll see some of the potential hurdles for cloud video, cannibalization, legal and copyright issues, audience fragmentation, etc. Monetization challenges. So moving to the next one, we have two quick case studies. We want to touch on Comcast, the largest cable operator, just kind of rolled out some cloud-based initiatives. The early results are encouraging. I'd be very pleased to share a little bit more about this during the Q&A. But you see the challenges they face, about $5 billion in annual CapEx spending. They started to roll out the X1, X2 platform, and we are very encouraged by some of the benefits they're getting: lower churn, cost savings, innovation, and a growing home security business. And the home security business, by the way, is a very new business that Comcast is just starting to exploit. That can be very, very transformational, we think, as an additional product that they're adding to the bundle. For Disney, which is the other case study that we looked at, Disney has been very proactive in putting their content across different platforms. And I think they've done a lot of deals, pay TV transmission deals with the pay TV providers. So whether it's the Watch ESPN or ABC app, these are starting to generate very, very impressive downloads just a few months after their launch. They've got deals with Netflix and a whole other providers. They did a very transformational first-run pay TV deal with Netflix, which has never been done by a Hollywood studio before, to replace a traditional output deal. Disney is reporting that all these initiatives, the TV everywhere, is really starting to impact in terms of the revenue they're generating, et cetera. And then I'm going to switch to the evolution of this is my last slide on the digital content chain. I figured I'd kind of make some predictions, because as an analyst, that's what we're paid to do, and how I see this cloud whole space evolving over the next 5 years. So we first see a move toward industry-wide adoption of cloud-based DVR and hybrid OTT solutions. So 5 years from now, we think that the cloud-based DVR is going to become the de facto standard. That doesn't mean that legacy set-top boxes are going to go away, because of course the cable companies have sunk billions of dollars into that. But that's going to be kind of how we see that continuing to be integrated. Virtual MSOs like Google, Sony have been talking about. And then significant milestones in audience measurement, we can get into that. My time is up. Ad insertion, the UIs are going to get better. And lastly, we think the winning mantra to end is that we don't fight the consumer. The companies are going to be winners and losers. What's going to separate the winners and losers are companies that are responsive to shifts in media consumption, and companies that embrace technology as a friend and not as a foe. Sorry to rush through the slides, but I'd be happy to take more on the questions. Thanks a lot for your audience.
Thank you very much, Steve. And our final presenter is Greg Harper of Harper Vision.
You didn't say the slides, right?
I had a tendency to, I saw everybody having slides. I said, actually do slides. And I said, no, I think I'll just talk. I am not an analyst. I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not an economist. But I am an early adopter, and I am a user, and I really am doing everything that we've talked about here. So yes, I've been around and doing the anthropology. We ran a program at Panasonic called Living in HD, where I went and visited 100 families across the country. We gave them a whole series of high-definition video equipment, and I went to, quote, install it. I didn't actually do the install, but what I was really doing is seeing how people used it. And I saw the changes we're talking about, but I live those changes every day right now. In my pocket, I actually have, the next generation of television. This is an iPad, and that's right now. What you're watching here is NBC, the Morning Today Show. Now, unfortunately, the network isn't quite as good here as I would expect it to be. So I actually had to buffer this a little bit. I was sitting here, but this could be live if the network were a little bit more stable. But we're watching from a television now over the internet. It's called Aereo, and this is basically an antenna that's stuck on top of a building in Brooklyn, taking the programming from the over-the-air free broadcast, very controversial, of course, and it's retransmitting it to me over the internet. And that is one of the issues that is happening today. It's not just VOD, it's not just Netflix. This is NBC, and I can switch in here in the program guide, and we can pick whatever channel we want and go into the channel guide. If I go into the channel guide here, Let's see, Let's Make a Deal is going on CBS. I want to watch that. I hit watch, and with the internet hopefully working, it will work here, but well, I won't go through it all now. But basically, I have the choice of watching television, except it's not coming to me via the cable, it's coming to me over the Ethernet. I just recently upgraded my home entertainment system, and I was surprised to find that the box that had the most cables connected, it used to be the receiver, it used to be the television set or the receiver. The box that had the most wires connected in my home entertainment system, not computer system, was an Ethernet switch. I had to go to 48 ports just to run the system. And in fact, I had to upgrade my network because I look at all these things and hover over the top, and I had to bring in a network engineer because I ran out of IP addresses in the DHCP range, and I had to go for a whole new range. So I had to have over 1,000 IP addresses because the 256 that came in the standard package wasn't enough for me. That's every single thing I have in my house is connected via the Ethernet. I also had to, of course, upgrade my connection to the outside world. Fortunately, I knew somebody at Verizon. We managed to cut a hole in 50th Street. Had to deal with the Secret Service to get the fiber connected because unfortunately the president goes by there, and so they welded the manhole cover. And so I had to get Secret Service to come and unweld it so we could connect the fiber. Anyway, the net result is I have now 650 megabits of connection to my home, soon to be upgraded to 800. But that is, okay, I am crazy and I am early adopter, but that's going to be what we're all going to see long term, and it's going to happen. Now, that connectivity, though, doesn't solve the basic problem because the infrastructure of the internet isn't set up for all this video and communication. And by the way, it's not just video, it's also audio. In the car, I now listen. My car is connected through LTE, and when I drive, I don't listen to AM radio or FM radio. An iPod is so yesterday. Why would I do that? And yes, the car comes even with a hard drive on board, but after a while, I've heard all the songs on it. I listen to Pandora, and I listen to Pandora streamed to me. And that is now coming standard in vehicles of all nature. And it's not just the high-end cars. I rented a Ford Taurus in California, and the car came with more technology. The whole car, by the way, cost, just the car cost less than the options in my higher-end European car. The whole car cost less, and it had almost as much technology. It's changing very quickly. We talked about the set-top box. The set-top box is really not gone. It's not going, it's gone. Here's a set-top box. This is the Google Chrome device, $35. This connects up to my device, and I'm going to be watching TV on my Chrome thing, which is in my pocket. I can be watching it mobily, connected on LTE. When I come home, I plug this into my TV. That's an HDMI port, plugs into the TV. I really don't want a smart TV because, in fact, what I really want is a big, dumb TV. I want a big screen because I don't want the smarts in the TV. I'll bring the smarts with me because for $35, why should I pay a premium of hundreds of dollars for a smart TV when I can take something like this and plug it in? And this is no good, I'll throw it away and buy a new one, $35. This changes things. So I can be watching on here, I can fling the program onto this device here, and now I'm watching it. That's television. And if you don't like Google, well, you can go with open source. Or the thing that I travel with when I travel, I like to watch my own television. I carry this little box here. This is a Roku box. Now what's interesting about this box, it also gets Aereo, it also gets Nimble TV, it also gets HBO Go, it also gets all the channels. So basically when I go to a hotel room, I plug this in, connect it up to the internet. If I don't have the internet in the hotel, I bring my own, of course. And instantly I have, not only do I have all of the programming that I would expect to have in New York City, but I have all that programming that I also have at home because I have my own media server, because I have a bit of bandwidth, so I put all my movies on there. So I can choose anything I want to watch. It's all customization. Now all of that's moving over the internet. Now even with all the high-speed networks that I have, that still doesn't solve the problem because I've got a nice high-speed network to internet to Verizon, but once I'm there, the basic infrastructure, I think that's what you want to talk about today, the basic infrastructure, the telecom infrastructure is not strong enough to support all this. The pipe to Netflix, the pipe to Amazon, the pipe to Aereo, those pipes aren't big enough yet to handle all this traffic. And this traffic is going to happen more and more and more. And when we move into it, I used to be a television producer, and I had multi-million-dollar studios with lots of cameras and edit rooms and all the rest. I can now have higher quality carrying something like this. This happens to be a Nokia phone. It's Windows operating system, I know, yes, and I do have all the others, the iPhone and the Google phone, and actually, this is for Jason. I have a new phone here. It's in my wallet. Here's a new phone. I knew he'd know what it was. The phones are really not phones anymore. What they are is connected terminals. But the reason I brought this out is because this thing has a 44 megapixel camera. That's more than my DSLR. It has an optically stabilized lens. Oh, by the way, it is connected to the outside world. I can live stream from this a very high quality HD product. So for the past couple of days, and in fact, I won't be able to be with you all day today, I've been at Advertising Week. We do an annual event at the New York Times Center, and I have been interviewing small startup companies. We've had 130 companies thus far. I probably do another 20 or 30 today. My voice is probably going because I've been doing this all day. I've been interviewing 20 to 25 companies personally every day. I built 2 studios because I'll interview one person and my colleague will interview another person. So we've been doing about 50 to 60 interviews a day of startup companies in the content space. And you would not believe the type of programming that's coming from these people. I mean, there are people who are now saying, I'm going to take short-form content and turn it into long-form content. So a company called Portico is not yet out yet, but Portico is doing is taking all that internet that we have, all those programmings that we see on the YouTube and everything else, and they're consolidating them into channels, the food channel, the tech channel, very specific channels, and they're actually putting hosts on it, and they're shooting that with green screen in a small studio, and they're building it. If you look at it, it looks like it's a network production, yet it's being shot literally with cell phones, etc. And yet, for you watching on TV, you plug this into your TV, and you can now watch it on TV. So the programming content is changing, the distribution is changing, the display device is changing, whether it's portable or your home TV. And it's not going to be linear television. And as we said, one person said before, the multicast is not going to work because if I'm going to watch something, I'm not going to want to watch it at the exact same time. Multicast will work for sports, and sports are important. But other than sports, if I want to watch my food channel on Portico, and I want to watch it from the beginning, I don't want to wait until 9 o'clock. I want to watch it at 9:18, or maybe 7:14, or maybe whatever channel I have. And I want linear. I want the sit-back television experience. I want to sit back, get a beer and sit back and watch TV. But it's not going to come on a piece of coax. It's going to come on Ethernet or wireless, and it's going to come to you over the internet. And unfortunately, our internet infrastructure is not set up for that. The CDNs aren't there. And I haven't even talked about the business side of things. But I'm wearing, as you can see, Google Glass. This is fully capable of doing a video conferencing here. I can now do video conferencing, telemedicine, whatever, just wearing my glasses here. But of course, this needs the connections and the internet capability of doing it. So business is going to happen. Already at Google, when you have a call with somebody, video is not a special, you don't have to go to a special room, it's just part of the deal. You sit down, unified communications, whether you have a phone and you want to do a video chat with your phone, or whether you want to do a video chat in a specialized room, it doesn't matter. It's all internet, it's all interconnected. So we have a really serious problem for us right now. The operators who provide the connection to our homes, to our businesses, just don't have, they might give us the short haul pipe, but the backhaul, the major infrastructure, the CDNs, all those data centers we see, they're just not, even as big as they are, the pipes aren't big enough yet. And we'll see it, it'll change. It's going to make people like, the cable operators go, oh my God, what are we going to do? But it will happen, but it's not maybe future, it's here. I'm doing it right now. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. So let's open up for questions. I'm sure there's a great many questions. Are we going to pass around a microphone?
Yes, there's a change batteries.
Okay.
If he wants to, you can ask a question. You've got a microphone.
So
we need a microphone. Can you repeat it, and then, so we can get going? Yeah. So two presenters really touched on the upstream or the two-way sessions, William and Bruce, with the video conferencing. So how are we going to handle the upstream capacity? Everybody's talking downstream and asynchronous traffic, but once we start doing a lot of upstream, you fundamentally have to re-architect everything.
Well, I mean, one of the things, there are a couple key pieces here. One key piece.
Repeat the question.
Sorry. The question was, assuming we take the point that Greg made, Greg made and I made also that the traffic's actually going to be a lot more symmetric, and that people's notions of traditional TV and what that traffic looks like, they shouldn't think that's actually what the future is going to be. And it's not just the video; it's other reasons too. How are we going to handle that? Part of that is a whole wireless question, spectrum management, and the architecture of that. And I'll skip that for a minute. The other piece I think really means is if you think about it, is we're going to do a lot more stuff locally so that we can get to bigger pipes so that we can plug in. We will have to have these bigger pipes, and there are some real difficult architecture issues. Like when Cisco, you take the biggest routers that Cisco has, the biggest routers Cisco's have will not scale to the traffic. They need a new generation of routers, and when they do that new generation of routers, those will fundamentally have to be distributed. And when they're fundamentally distributed, what it means is you take the world of high-performance computing, where there's a whole lot of cool stuff there, and you take the world of wide area networking, and you put them together, and you say that internet is now a bus, where I have that kind of real-time access, and I've got latency. Getting to that's a lot of stuff, and it has a lot of implications, because, for example, once I have a thing like that, if that box, let's say, is sitting in China, and someone says to me, hey, I don't ever want my traffic to go to China, it's not even clear how you do that, how you know where that box is actually sitting, and whether or not those boxes may have to actually be something like embassies. So when you're in the embassy in the Middle East, you're not in the Middle East, you're on U.S. property, to deal with the legal stuff. But there's all that stuff. But at the edges, a lot of this is going to be end users. It's going to be people figuring out how to get this like 256 IP addresses. I can't do that in my house. But that has to be something I can buy in a big box store. Like today, I buy a Wi-Fi box that's self-configuring, and that means it's going to have to you have to be able to upgrade it from software. But I'm going to want that box. So when I buy it, it finds out that my neighbor has a similar box, and that there's extra terabytes of drive there, and I can do distributed cloud storage. And so that end user commitment, equipment piece at the edges is where a huge of this disruption needs to happen and will happen, I think.
Great. So the question was upstream, and the downstream, the asymmetrical, the asymmetrical model is really coming from the cable operators, where they do big downstream and very upstream, and that's based on their DOCSIS 5 architecture. That will change, and they'll get more of it, and it's supposedly going to change here in New York. Fiber is definitely solves that problem a lot. Yes?
But unfortunately, in wireless, we're going the same way. Now the wireless guys are following the cable guys. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, the wireless is going the same way. And by the way, the wireless issue, most people don't realize, is not the cell towers. It's the actual backhaul from the cell towers back to the network. That's what the problem is. Because those pipes, you have these guys that saying over and over, LTE with 40 megabits a second, and they got a T1 line going to the cell site. I mean, T1, 45 megabits. It ain't going to happen. No, but I actually agree with you. It's going to be distributed. It's probably going to be optical switching, and it's going to have to be all over the place. I've talked to, again, some cable operators who are looking at architectures where they actually are going to say, we're going to put effectively CDN, content distribution networks, into your home, and we're going to provide that as part of the service. So we'll actually use your home to expand Wi-Fi and connectivity, because they have those. There are a lot of people thinking cleverly, but yes, it's a big issue is the backhaul, and I agree that the switch network has to change.
And let me add to that, because I'm aware that the cable operators talk about Wi-Fi. They've got these 5 cable company consortium that's launching these Wi-Fi hotspots, including Cablevision in New York City area, as well as Time Warner Cable. And the speeds that are actually being rolled out now, I think they're moving to the symmetrical speeds. So you might want to double check on that, because that's my understanding. Yeah. And I think now there are 250,000 hotspots nationwide, and I think they realize the issue that you brought up, and they're trying to address. And
they don't want to rewire the entire place. Much easier to put hotspots in.
I'm Bob Cohen. I direct the TM Forum's Enterprise Cloud Leadership Council. I feel like I'm in a bit of a time warp here, because there's been dramatic progress in the last couple of years that has changed the way we look at clouds very dramatically. For one thing, the discussion of the economics of the cloud were really outdated this morning. What we've seen and what's been discussed, not only by Google but also by Verizon, is that by moving to software-defined networking, they can change the cost of expanding the network infrastructure, and that Google has been able to expand its capacity by an order of magnitude 6 to 10-fold, with at least a 10-fold savings in cost. So if you look at the economics of that, it's pretty dramatic. And Stu Elby from Verizon has said that he's been able to flatten the rising cost curve completely off so that his ARPU going forward is going to be higher than his network costs. So that's one big change. The second big change has been the same technology changes the data center. The data center is going to be a center of intelligence from now on, both for putting up new applications, but also for interaction. And I think that that also changes the economics as we consider them here. Because if I'm a consumer, I'm going to be able to go into that system and change the way the ecosystem deals with me. And I think that you need to look at those changes that have occurred and incorporate them into the analysis. Otherwise, it's not really congruent with what's been happening.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you at all. And adding to that, some of the next generation of wireless LTE, the next generations, the speeds there actually are starting to equal that of what we now see on fiber. I think what I'm saying, the infrastructure has to go away. I think the traditional infrastructure of coaxial cable that we see on the cable operators having deployed, that's what's obsolete. There'll be fiber backbones, there'll be distributed RF distribution around the neighborhood to get connectivity out there. But yes, it's going to happen with software. It's also going to happen with new compression techniques that will actually, as more and more video comes down, the video compression will get more efficient. It's happening already. So I agree with you, it's going to happen. So I don't think it's not going to happen. The point I was trying to make is it's already happening, and it's happening very, very quickly. And I think that the networks are certainly capable of upgrading as fast as the users are out there. They see it happening, they see the revenue, they know their business model is going to change. They know that the business model of having every single cable subscriber supporting ESPN is going to have to break at some point because people are going to want cable. So they're rapidly thinking about that.
Yeah, I think you brought up a very interesting point on the but I want to remind you that cost is only one element of the equation, right? So in one of my case studies, Comcast, I talk about how they're saving not just in capex, but like lower truck rolls, and et cetera. But one of the transformational things that's happening also is the revenue side of the equation. Comcast, for example, has seen very astronomical increase in VOD views, as well as transactional VOD, since they started to shift to the IP system platform, which they're continuing to roll out. So when you look at the whole ecosystem, this has the potential to kind of enlarge and grow the revenue pie for everyone. And I think, talk about Google, I think Google, as I predicted, one of my predictions, I think Google realizes that, they have to be an integral part of this evolving landscape. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already talking to ESPN. I'm aware of potentially launching the virtual internet television service. They started accelerating the rollout of Google Fiber in Kansas area, offering up to 1 gigabyte of speed, which is orders of magnitude higher than what the cable companies are offering. So I think this whole landscape, really no one knows how this is all going to shake out, but it's really changing very fast.
Thank you. This is more of a software.
State your name.
John Baker with Big Apple. This is software, I guess, infrastructure question. We talked about privacy, but the privacy, the question I have asking for comment on is with a cloud-based entertainment experience where people are tracking everything you watched for the last 50 years, are we going to see somebody hacking in and suddenly telling us what mayoral candidates have been viewing for the past 10 years, or will there be any privacy? I mean, I'm struck by how aggressive people were in trying to protect what books you used to take out of the library, you know, from various data collectors. And my question is, what can an advertiser look forward to? What can a consumer look forward to in terms of a privacy experience?
Well, I mean, as you know, right now you have very little privacy. Two comments. One, there's a lot of discussion about, you know, cross-media measurement so that the television industry could do what essentially they're doing on the web. And it's not as far along as what most people say. Most people are still aggregating from different sources, so they don't have as complete a picture as they might, but they're probably going to be there in 2 or 3 years. Second thing, probably bad thing to say at a conference like this, what about regulation? We've been on this anti-regulation kick for at least 10 years. Why is it illegal for a company to put a cookie on my computer and not only, I have no problems with the New York Times looking at everything I do in the New York Times. The New York Times or Google or anyone, they know everything I'm doing. Why is that legal? But it is.
So, you know, my thinking on privacy, right? There's a kind of a push-pull dynamic between privacy and then personalization, right? So you could almost argue that they're somewhat inversely correlated, right? So in terms of the less privacy that you kind of offer as a provider, the more you can get data that allows you to personalize. And that is something I think that the industry has grappled with. Netflix, for example, lobbied so hard to get the video privacy regulations kind of overturned by Congress, which is inapplicable, by the way, overseas. So they were able to roll out a lot more privacy, a lot more, you know, kind of features and user-friendly. So now they're starting to do that in the United States. They've got full integration with Facebook, and I think in 6 months or so that they've started to launch that. I think they're seeing a dramatic increase in satisfaction, lower churn, etc. So I think it's always going to be a delicate balance to strike as a provider, not just traditional but over the top. But I think you know what we're seeing right now is the quality of data that's coming out of the ecosystem has gotten a lot better. That's going to allow some of the issue about cross-platform measurement, which I highlighted in my earlier slides. Going to, over the next 5 years, we think is going to be a major breakthrough. It's going to pull together all of these data and allow the measurement of viewership across all of these platforms.
Something to repeat. If cookies are banned, as they may be in other, based on regulation around the world, what alternative is there to provide the advertiser with the experience, with the information they need in order to get the dollars or the value from it?
I wish
Well, I mean,
you could
let
have
Bill-
been at the conference Tuesday, because that's exactly the topic that's being done. There's an interesting company that actually is actually building an application that companies can use on their websites can use to show exactly what data they are using and how much what they know about you. And when you open it up and take a look at it, it turns out to be pretty innocuous. People are imagining what people are saying, but in fact, when you actually look at what they're doing, it's pretty innocuous. It's very accurate though, but it says it doesn't really know what I had for breakfast or what books I read, etc. But it does know my age, it knows my income, general area, it knows my likes, and it actually is able to mark things up. But if you actually look at what they have, it turns out to be not very serious, and if it's private. But one of the people on the panel the other day said, essentially, privacy matters when it's being abused, but it doesn't. But people will give up their privacy when they're getting a benefit from it, which is sort of what you're saying here. So it's that delicate balance. I absolutely agree with it. You know, if I'm going to have a free programming and I'm going to have advertisements thrown at me, I'd rather the advertisements have something to do with something I'm interested in, as opposed to this annoying stuff about some drugs or people in bathtubs or God knows what I see on television all the time. I have no idea what this is. I don't care about it. But right now, I'm looking to acquire a new vehicle. I would very like to know the differences between the vehicles, and in fact, I would like to have that information. So having that advertisement targeted toward me, if I'm going to have to watch advertising anyway, and I don't want to pay for the programming, then I would much rather have advertising that's meaningful to me and actually be able to go into it in more depth. What I don't like is the ambush advertising where it's coming at me and it's like, but fortunately, when listening to all the people on the Advertising Week stage, the cost per 1,000 concept, which was just bulk, take everything, just throw it out there, and we'll get maybe tiny bit return, like spammers, essentially. Hoping that send 10 billion emails out, and hopefully 100 will do it, and it'll make it worthwhile for them to annoy everybody to get their 10. If we get more targeted and we actually have controls over privacy, and by the way, cookies don't work on mobile phones. They used to use other things like that, and people are moving toward mobile phones. And we look at the next billion people connected to the internet and connected online. They're not going to be connected with laptop computers. So cookies are another the reason that these mobile devices don't accept cookies is probably another good reason to get rid of those laptops and computers on your desk, which use up a lot of power. I don't do very much more than what I can do in my pocket today.
Thanks, Greg. William had a response.
So I was going to say, at a high level, I think the notion is, privacy is dead in the sense that if someone wants to find out about you, they absolutely can. And I don't think there are any technical solutions that will actually solve that. And so there's a whole lot of stuff we can do about privacy and worry about it, but privacy is the flip side of security. And if we think about it from an infrastructure point of view, how we deal with this, you have to think about whatever we do on the security side, the privacy side, and our digital rights management or content rights management, it's not going to be three completely different things. So whatever techniques or tools or things we build in is going to have to deal with all of those. And you have to think about all those spaces much more together than has been done in the past. A key challenge in terms of this whole thing about going to clouds is how are we going to do federated identity management? And the White House has this NSTIC initiative to try and move forward, but that's basically we know we don't want to have a single person in charge. So I don't like signing on by Facebook, because why would I trust Facebook any more than anybody else? A lot of people are willing to do that. Yet, if we have multiple ones, how do we do that? So that question of how we're going to manage the identity is going to be really important. And a whole class of things that we haven't seen yet, but I think we can expect to see in the future, is much more active agents managing the results of privacy violations for us. So more people, like, for example, generating chaff and other stuff like that. A huge amount of the activity that's going on in things like social networks is not people interacting, it's software interacting. And disentangling which is which when people have an incentive to create that kind of masquerading, I think is going to be a lot more important. When people are actively trying to disrupt or manipulate the data, which is going to increasingly be a problem in big data, then the inferences you draw as you move towards micro-marketing, which is clearly where we're going, the inferences, you move something into a real-world bilateral bargain. And when you move things into a real-world bilateral bargain, then all kinds of things can happen in the system. It's just a question of who's got the smarter agent running on their application. So I think that there's a potential here for a lot of disruption, a lot of very interesting things. Privacy is one of the flashpoints that's going to come up, but you could have asked that question as a security issue too, and all this stuff.
Thank you so much. I think we've gotten off to a great start. A lot of great ideas. We can take some of the discussion offline. Now we're going to have a coffee break, and then we need to reconvene at 10:45. Let's give a hand to our panel. Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes. Can I get the slides? Of course.